The fluorescent lights of Denver International Airport buzzed overhead as Claire Whitmore checked her phone for the third time in 10 minutes. Flight 247 to Seattle had been delayed another hour, pushing her arrival well past midnight. She sighed, adjusting her worn leather portfolio against her chest. The job interview tomorrow morning would determine whether she could finally escape the cycle of temporary positions that had defined her career for the past 2 years. Claire found an empty seat near Gate B23, surrounded by the familiar chaos of stranded travelers. Families sprawled across multiple chairs, business executives typed furiously on laptops, and children ran between the seats despite their parents' tired attempts at control. The autumn storm outside showed no signs of letting up, and the departure boards flickered with an endless stream of delays and cancellations. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she'd skipped lunch to prepare for tomorrow's interview with Meridian Technologies, a rapidly growing software company that had finally responded to one of her countless applications. Claire counted the bills in her wallet carefully. $37 in change, enough for a sandwich and coffee, with maybe a few dollars left over for tomorrow's breakfast. The food court was packed with equally frustrated travelers. Claire joined the line at a sandwich shop, watching the prices on the overhead menu with growing concern. Everything seemed to cost more than she remembered from her last flight 6 months ago. Behind her, a conversation caught her attention. "Mommy, I'm really hungry," a small voice whispered. Claire turned slightly to see a boy, perhaps 7 years old, tugging on his mother's sleeve. The woman looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her clothes wrinkled as if she'd been traveling for days. She was studying the menu with the same careful attention Claire had given it moments before. "I know, sweetheart," the mother replied softly, her voice carrying a slight tremor. "Let me see what we can afford." Claire couldn't help but overhear as the woman quietly counted crumpled bills from her purse. The boy pressed closer to her side, his small hand gripping a worn stuffed elephant that had clearly been his companion for many adventures. "Can I have the chicken nuggets?" he asked hopefully, pointing to the kid's meal display. His mother hesitated, recounting the money. "Maybe we should share a sandwich instead, honey. The nuggets are a bit expensive." The disappointment on the child's face was immediate, but quiet. He simply nodded and hugged his elephant tighter. Claire felt her heart clench. She recognized that particular brand of childhood disappointment, the kind that comes from understanding, even at a young age, that money was tight and dreams had to be scaled back to match reality. "Next!" the cashier called, and Claire stepped forward. She ordered a simple turkey sandwich and coffee, but as she handed over her credit card, she hesitated. "Actually," she said, turning to the mother and son behind her, "I'd like to add a kid's meal to that order. The chicken nuggets, please, with apple slices and chocolate milk." The mother looked up, startled. "Oh no, we couldn't—" "Please," Claire smiled warmly. "I insist. Airports are tough enough on everyone, especially the little ones." The boy's eyes lit up with pure joy. "Really, the chicken nuggets." "Really," Claire confirmed, feeling a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the overheated terminal. As they waited for their orders, the mother introduced herself as Lisa and her son as Marcus. They were traveling to Seattle for a job interview, Lisa's first real opportunity in months after being laid off from her position at a call center in Phoenix. "I don't know how to thank you," Lisa said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's been a really difficult few months." "No thanks needed," Claire replied. "We're all just trying to get through the day, right?" What none of them noticed was the man in the worn baseball cap and faded jeans sitting 2 tables away, nursing a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. He had been observing the interaction with keen interest, his fingers occasionally tapping against his phone screen. To any casual observer, he looked like just another delayed passenger, perhaps a construction worker or mechanic heading home after a long job. But his eyes held a sharpness that suggested he was accustomed to making important decisions, and his attention had been completely focused on Claire's spontaneous act of kindness. As Claire gathered her sandwich and coffee, preparing to return to the gate, she felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. She turned to find a teenage girl, probably around 16, with nervous energy radiating from her slight frame. "Excuse me," the girl said quietly. "I saw what you did for that little boy. That was really nice." Claire smiled. "Just paying it forward. We've all been in tough spots." The girl nodded, then lowered her voice. "I just thought you should know. That man over there in the baseball cap, he's been watching the whole thing, and he was taking notes on his phone." Claire followed the girl's subtle gesture toward the man, who was now looking directly at them. When their eyes met, he didn't look away. Instead, he raised his coffee cup in a small salute, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Do you know who he is?" Claire asked the girl. "No, but he's been here for hours, and he doesn't seem bothered by any of the delays. Plus, he bought coffee for the janitor earlier and helped that elderly woman with her luggage. It's like he's, I don't know, studying people or something." A chill ran down Claire's spine, though she couldn't say why. The man didn't look threatening. Quite the opposite, actually. There was something almost familiar about his demeanor, though she was certain they'd never met. "Thanks for the heads up," Claire told the girl. "I'm sure it's nothing to worry about." But as she walked back toward her gate, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, though she had no idea what it might be. The man with the baseball cap had returned to his coffee and phone, but she could feel his presence like a subtle electric charge in the air. The announcement for her flight finally came as she was finishing her sandwich. Passengers began gathering their belongings, forming the usual chaotic lines that preceded boarding. Claire packed her portfolio carefully, double-checking that her interview materials were organized and accessible. As she stood in line, she felt another tap on her shoulder. This time it was a flight attendant, impeccably dressed despite the long delays. "Ms. Whitmore?" the attendant asked, consulting a tablet. "Yes? There's been a change to your seating assignment. You've been upgraded to first class. Seat 2A. Claire blinked in confusion. "I think there's been a mistake. I didn't request an upgrade, and I certainly didn't pay for one." The attendant smiled mysteriously. "No mistake. Sometimes good things just happen to good people. Please follow me." As Claire gathered her belongings, still bewildered, she caught sight of the man in the baseball cap one more time. He was standing near the gate, apparently waiting for the same flight. When he saw her looking, he touched the brim of his cap in acknowledgement, and for just a moment, his smile reminded her of someone she couldn't quite place. The first-class cabin was a world away from her usual economy experience. The seat was spacious and comfortable, with enough room to actually open her laptop if she wanted to. The flight attendant brought her a complimentary drink and mentioned that dinner would be served shortly after takeoff. As the plane pushed back from the gate, Claire stared out the window at the storm clouds that had caused so much chaos. Lightning flickered in the distance, but they were finally leaving it behind. Tomorrow's interview suddenly felt less daunting, as if the unexpected upgrade was a sign that things might finally be turning around. She had no idea that 3 rows behind her, the man in the baseball cap was making notes on his phone about employee number 247,891, Claire Whitmore, who had just demonstrated exactly the kind of character he'd been hoping to find. Claire woke in her modest Seattle hotel room, feeling more rested than she had in months. The mysterious first-class upgrade had allowed her to sleep during the flight, and she arrived feeling prepared rather than exhausted. The storm had cleared overnight, leaving the Pacific Northwest morning crisp and bright. She dressed carefully in her best interview outfit, a navy blue suit she'd bought during better times when she was still employed at her previous marketing firm. The fabric was quality, and it still fit well, though she'd noticed her clothes hanging a bit looser lately due to the stress-induced weight loss that came with months of job searching. Meridian Technologies was housed in a sleek building in downtown Seattle, all glass and steel reaching toward the cloudy sky. Claire arrived 30 minutes early, as was her habit, and spent the time in a nearby coffee shop reviewing her notes and trying to calm her nerves. The receptionist at Meridian was friendly and professional, directing Claire to a comfortable waiting area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. She was admiring the view when a woman approached, tall, confident, with prematurely gray hair that she wore like a badge of honor. "Claire Whitmore? I'm Jennifer Hartwell, Director of Human Resources. Thank you for coming in." The interview process was more extensive than Claire had expected. She met with Jennifer first, then with the marketing team lead, followed by a panel discussion with 3 department heads. Each conversation felt natural and engaging, far removed from the stilted, checkbox-style interviews she'd endured at other companies. "Your experience with digital campaigns is impressive," noted David Chen, the marketing director. "But what really caught our attention was your approach to community engagement in your previous role. Can you tell us more about that?" Claire discussed her work organizing charity drives and volunteer events during her time at her last firm, how she'd seen the value in building genuine connections rather than just pushing products. The panel nodded approvingly, exchanging glances that seemed positive. "We have one more person for you to meet," Jennifer said as the formal interview concluded. "Our CEO likes to personally meet all potential senior-level hires. He's a bit unconventional, but you'll find him very down-to-earth." They took an elevator to the top floor, where Jennifer led Claire down a hallway lined with awards and photos of company events. At the end was a corner office with an open door and voices coming from within. "Robert, your next interview is here," Jennifer called out. "Send them in," came the response. Claire stepped into the office and froze. Behind a substantial desk sat the man from the airport, the one in the baseball cap who had been watching her interaction with Marcus and his mother. Today he wore a well-tailored suit and a warm smile that transformed his entire appearance, but there was no mistaking those observant eyes. "Ms. Whitmore," he said, standing and extending his hand. "I'm Robert Sterling, CEO of Meridian Technologies. It's a pleasure to officially meet you." Claire shook his hand, her mind racing. "Mr. Sterling, this is unexpected." He chuckled, gesturing for her to sit in one of the comfortable chairs facing his desk. "I imagine it is. Jennifer, thank you. Could you close the door on your way out?" Once they were alone, Robert leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "I suppose you're wondering about yesterday." "The thought had crossed my mind," Claire managed, finding her voice. "I was flying back from Denver after visiting one of our satellite offices. Flight delays gave me an unexpected opportunity to observe human nature in one of its more stressful environments." He paused, studying her face. "What you did for that little boy, and his mother, said more about your character than any resume could." Claire felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You were watching me." "I was watching everyone," Robert corrected gently. "Airports are fascinating microcosms of society. People reveal their true selves when they're tired, stressed, and inconvenienced. Most passengers complained loudly about delays, snapped at staff, or buried themselves in devices to avoid interacting with others." He stood and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "You, on the other hand, noticed a child in need and responded with immediate, unconscious generosity. No hesitation, no calculation of what you might gain, just pure human kindness." "Anyone would have done the same thing," Claire protested. Robert turned back to her with a knowing smile. "That's exactly what someone with genuine character would say. But you're wrong. Most people wouldn't have done the same thing. I watched for 3 hours and you were the only person who offered unprompted help to a stranger." Claire was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "The flight upgrade? A small thank you. I have certain privileges with the airline." He returned to his desk, pulling out a folder. "Claire, I've reviewed your qualifications extensively. You're more than qualified for the marketing position you applied for. But I'd like to discuss something different." He opened the folder, revealing documents she hadn't expected to see. "We're launching a new initiative, Corporate Social Responsibility and Community Engagement. It's a senior position reporting directly to me with the mandate to develop programs that genuinely impact communities while building authentic connections for our brand." Claire's heart began to race. This was beyond anything she'd imagined. "The salary is 40% higher than the marketing position," Robert continued, "with full benefits, stock options, and a budget that would allow you to make real differences in people's lives. Interested?" Yes, absolutely," Claire stammered. "But why me? I mean, based on one interaction at an airport?" Robert smiled, and suddenly she could see the man in the baseball cap again, quietly observing the world around him. "Claire, I've built this company by trusting my instincts about people. Yesterday, I saw someone who acts on her values even when no one is watching, or when she thinks no one is watching. That's exactly what this position requires." He handed her a detailed job description. "Take the weekend to review this. If you're interested, I'd like you to start Monday. Your first project would be developing a program to support single parents in crisis, people like Lisa and Marcus." Claire's eyes widened. "You know their names?" "I made it my business to know. Lisa got the job she interviewed for, by the way. Sometimes a little help behind the scenes can change everything." Robert's expression grew serious. "The world needs more people who pay attention to those around them, Claire, who choose kindness over convenience. I think you might be one of those people." As Claire left the building an hour later, her head spinning with possibilities, she couldn't help but think about the butterfly effect, how one small decision could ripple outward in ways impossible to predict. A hungry child, a moment of compassion, and now an opportunity that could change everything. She pulled out her phone to call her sister with the news, then paused. First, she wanted to find Lisa's contact information. If Robert Sterling was right about the power of small gestures, then maybe it was time to start a chain reaction of her own. 3 weeks into her new position, Claire had transformed a small conference room into mission control for what would become Meridian's most ambitious community program. Whiteboards covered every wall, filled with diagrams, timelines, and lists of potential partner organizations. The Single Parent Success Initiative was taking shape faster than anyone had anticipated. She'd reconnected with Lisa, who had indeed gotten the job in Seattle and was slowly rebuilding her life with Marcus. Their friendship had deepened naturally, born from that moment of connection in the airport. Lisa had become Claire's first unofficial consultant, providing insights into the real challenges single parents faced that no market research could capture. "The biggest problem isn't just money," Lisa explained during one of their coffee meetings. "It's time. I can work overtime to make ends meet, or I can be home for Marcus's bedtime. I can take him to the doctor when he's sick, or I can keep my perfect attendance record. Everything feels like an impossible choice." These conversations informed every aspect of Claire's program design. Rather than another charity handout, she was developing a comprehensive support system. Emergency childcare for work crises, flexible employment opportunities within Meridian's network, educational partnerships with local colleges, and a peer mentoring system connecting single parents across different stages of their journeys. Robert had given her unprecedented autonomy, checking in weekly but never micromanaging. "I hired you for your judgment," he'd said. "Show me what that looks like in action." The program's first pilot launch was scheduled for the following month, but Claire knew they needed a test case first. She'd been working with Jennifer from HR to identify Meridian employees who might benefit from the resources they were developing. The company had over 800 employees across multiple locations, and surely some were facing similar challenges to Lisa's. The answer came from an unexpected source. During a lunch break, Claire overheard a conversation in the employee kitchen between two junior developers, Michael and Sean. "I can't stay late tonight," Michael was saying quietly. "Emma's daycare closes at 6, and they charge $50 for every 15 minutes you're late. I've already paid those fees twice this month." "Can't your ex help out?" Sean asked. "She moved to Portland last year. It's just me and Emma now." Michael's voice carried the same exhausted note Claire had heard in Lisa's voice at the airport. Claire approached them carefully. "Excuse me, I couldn't help overhearing. I'm Claire Whitmore from the Community Engagement Department. Could I speak with you privately, Michael?" Michael looked worried. "Am I in trouble? I swear I make up any time I miss, and my project deadlines are always—" "You're not in trouble," Claire assured him. "Quite the opposite. I think you might be able to help me with something I'm working on." An hour later, in Claire's office, Michael was reviewing the preliminary program materials with growing amazement. "This is exactly what I need. What parents like me need. But why would the company invest in something like this? Because employees who aren't constantly stressed about childcare are more productive, more loyal, and more creative," Claire explained. "But more importantly, because it's the right thing to do. Would you be willing to participate in a pilot program, help us work out the kinks before we launch company-wide?" Michael's relief was palpable. "Yes, absolutely yes." Word spread quietly through the company network. Claire found herself fielding inquiries from employees she'd never met, not just single parents, but others facing various life challenges. A recent widow struggling with grief and finances. An employee caring for an aging parent with dementia. A young father whose wife was battling cancer. Each conversation reinforced Claire's belief that the airport observation Robert had shared was just the beginning. People everywhere were struggling, often silently, waiting for someone to notice and offer help. The breakthrough came during a team meeting with Robert and the senior leadership. Claire was presenting her pilot results when David Chen, the marketing director who'd interviewed her, raised an unexpected point. "The employee response has been incredible," he noted, reviewing Claire's metrics. "But I'm wondering if we're thinking too small. What if this became more than an internal program?" Robert leaned forward, intrigued. "Elaborate. What if we partnered with other companies in Seattle? Created a network of businesses committed to supporting single parents in their workforce? Shared resources, created a talent pipeline, built a reputation as employers who genuinely care about work-life balance?" Claire felt excitement building. "We could establish industry standards for family-friendly policies, create a certification program, make supporting single parents a competitive advantage rather than a burden. Or is it the PR value alone would be substantial?" added Jennifer. "But more importantly, we'd be creating real change at scale." Robert was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. Finally, he spoke. "Claire, What would you need to make this happen? Over the next month, Claire found herself working longer hours than she had since college, but with an energy she'd never experienced in previous jobs. The work felt meaningful in a way that transcended typical career satisfaction. She was building something that could genuinely improve lives, not just quarterly profits. The network grew organically. Companies that heard about Meridian's program reached out wanting to participate. Local colleges offered educational partnerships. Childcare centers proposed innovative, flexible arrangements. Even competitors expressed interest in collaboration rather than competition. Lisa became Claire's unofficial ambassador, speaking at planning meetings about the real impact of the resources they were developing. 3 months ago, I was choosing between groceries and gas money, she told a room full of executives. Today, I'm planning Emma's college fund. That's what happens when people have genuine support. The program officially launched on a gray Seattle morning in November, exactly 2 months after Claire's airport encounter with Marcus. The press conference was held at Meridian's offices with representatives from 12 partner companies, 3 city council members, and dozens of local single parents who would be among the first beneficiaries. As Claire spoke to the assembled crowd about the power of community support and corporate responsibility, she spotted a familiar face in the audience. The teenage girl from the airport was there with an older woman who was clearly her mother, both smiling proudly. After the event, the girl approached Claire. I told you he was watching, she said with a grin. I'm Ashley, by the way. This is my mom, Karen. She heard about your program on the news and wanted to meet you. Karen, a single mother who worked as a nurse at Seattle Children's Hospital, was exactly the kind of person the program was designed to help. I've been struggling to afford continuing education for my certification, she explained. The tuition assistance program could change everything for Ashley and me. As Claire exchanged contact information with Karen and added her to the growing network of families being supported, she realized something profound had shifted in her understanding of success. 6 months ago, she'd defined it by salary figures and job titles. Now, it was measured in children who didn't go to bed hungry, parents who didn't have to choose between career advancement and family responsibilities, and communities that supported their most vulnerable members. Robert appeared beside her as the crowd began to disperse. How does it feel to change the world? He asked with his characteristic slight smile. Like I'm just getting started, Claire replied, watching Ashley help her mother navigate the resource tables they'd set up around the room. Good, Robert said, because I have some ideas about expanding this to our other locations. Think you're ready for a national program? Claire thought about Marcus and his chicken nuggets, about Michael staying late for the first time in months because he knew Emma was safe in the company's emergency childcare program, about Lisa planning for her future instead of just surviving day to day. More than ready, she said. 6 months later, Claire stood before a packed auditorium at the Seattle Convention Center, preparing to deliver the keynote address at the first national conference on corporate family support. The Meridian model had expanded to 43 companies across 6 states, supporting over 2,000 families and fundamentally shifting conversations about corporate social responsibility. The program's success had exceeded everyone's expectations, including Robert's. What had started as an internal initiative had become a movement, attracting attention from policymakers, social workers, and business leaders nationwide. Harvard Business School had even reached out about developing a case study, but for Claire, the real measure of success remained personal. She thought about the stack of thank you letters on her desk, each one representing a life changed by something as simple as believing that companies could do more than generate profits. In the front row, she could see her unofficial advisory board, Lisa, Michael, Karen, and a dozen other parents whose insights had shaped every aspect of the program. Marcus was there too, now 8 years old, and proudly wearing a future CEO t-shirt that Robert had given him during a recent office visit. When I bought a child's meal at Denver International Airport 8 months ago, Claire began, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system, I had no idea I was about to learn the most important lesson of my career. I thought I was simply helping a hungry little boy. What I discovered was that small acts of kindness, when supported by intentional systems and genuine commitment, can create transformational change. She shared the story of that delayed flight, the mysterious upgrade, and the revelation that someone had been watching, waiting to see how people chose to treat each other when they thought no one was paying attention. The audience listened intently, many taking notes, others simply absorbing the message. Robert Sterling, my CEO, taught me that character is revealed in unguarded moments. But I've learned something else over these past months. Character can also be cultivated through institutional support. When we create systems that make it easier for people to help each other, kindness becomes scalable. The presentation included data that would have made her former marketing colleagues proud, metrics showing increased employee retention, improved productivity, and enhanced company reputation. But Claire spent most of her time on the stories. The single father who'd been promoted after completing his degree through the program's educational partnership. The mother who'd started her own consulting business using resources and connections from the professional development network. The teenager who'd received scholarship support and was now studying engineering at the University of Washington. During the question and answer session, a woman in the middle section raised her hand. This all sounds wonderful in theory, but how do you convince executives to invest in programs that don't show immediate financial returns? Claire smiled, remembering asking herself the same question months ago. You start by finding executives who understand that sustainable business success requires sustainable communities. But more practically, you show them that supporting employees' personal challenges actually solves business problems. Turnover costs money. Stress-related productivity losses cost money. Recruiting and training new employees costs money. When you help people stabilize their lives, they become better employees and more loyal community members. Robert, who had been quietly observing from the back of the room, stepped forward to add his perspective. At Meridian, we've seen a 37% reduction in turnover among employees who participate in our family support programs. More importantly, we've seen innovation and collaboration increase as people feel more secure and supported. You can't put a price on the peace of mind that comes from knowing your employer genuinely cares about your well-being. After the conference, Claire found herself surrounded by business cards and implementation requests. Companies from as far away as Atlanta and Phoenix wanted to adapt the Meridian model to their organizations. Several state governments had expressed interest in policy initiatives that would incentivize similar programs. As the crowd thinned, Ashley, the observant teenager from the airport who had warned Claire about being watched, approached with her mother, Karen. Both were now volunteer coordinators for the Seattle program, helping other families navigate the resources available. "I have something for you," Ashley said, pulling out a carefully wrapped package. Inside was a framed photo taken at the airport that night, showing Claire handing the kids' meal to Marcus while Lisa watched with tears in her eyes. Claire had never seen the photo before. "How did you get this?" she asked, amazed. "Airport security footage," Ashley grinned. "My cousin works there, and after all this started making news, he found it in the archives. We thought you should have it." Claire stared at the image, remembering how ordinary that moment had felt at the time. Just a tired woman buying dinner for a hungry child, never imagining it would become the catalyst for something that would touch thousands of lives. "You know what's funny?" Karen said thoughtfully. "Ashley's been volunteering with the program for months now, helping other families get connected to resources. Last week, she helped a single dad whose daughter needed school supplies. She bought them herself with money from her part-time job. The kindness is contagious," Ashley added with a grin that reminded Claire of Marcus's joy over his chicken nuggets. "Turns out when you help people, they want to help other people too." As the evening wound down, Claire walked out to the convention center's plaza with Robert, Lisa, and Marcus. The Seattle skyline glittered in the distance, and ferries moved like slow stars across Elliott Bay. It was the kind of peaceful moment that made the city feel full of possibilities. "So what's next?" Lisa asked. "I heard rumors about a national expansion." Robert chuckled. "More than rumors. We've had inquiries from companies in 12 countries. The Department of Labor wants to discuss federal pilot programs. And," he paused dramatically, "Harvard Business School has offered Claire a visiting lecturer position to develop their first course on compassionate leadership." Claire felt a familiar flutter of excitement mixed with responsibility. "It's overwhelming, honestly. A year ago, I was worried about making rent. Now I'm being asked to help reshape how businesses think about their role in society. The best leaders are often reluctant leaders," Robert observed. "People who are driven by purpose rather than power tend to make decisions that serve others, not just themselves." Marcus, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Claire, do you remember what I said at the airport?" Claire knelt down to his eye level. "Remind me, sweetheart." "I said thank you. But I want to say it again because my mom told me that your kindness led to her job, and her job led to our apartment, and our apartment led to my new school where I have friends." He paused, his 8-year-old brain working to articulate something complex. "So really, Your kindness led to my happiness. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. Your happiness was always yours, Marcus. I just helped clear the path a little. But that's what kindness does, he said with the profound simplicity that only children can achieve. It clears paths for people. As they walked toward their cars, Claire reflected on the journey that had brought them all together. A delayed flight, a hungry child, an observant CEO, and a woman who chose compassion over convenience had somehow combined to create something larger than any of them could have imagined alone. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer in HR. FYI, we just received 847 applications for our open positions this week. Previous record was 23. Apparently, word is spreading that we're a company that cares about people. Prepare for some serious hiring meetings. Claire showed the message to Robert, who laughed. Looks like kindness isn't just contagious. It's also profitable. Who would have thought? Maybe, Claire suggested. The best business strategy is simply being human. As she drove home through the quiet Seattle streets, Claire thought about the framed photo now sitting in her passenger seat. In it, she could see herself in that moment of decision. Tired, stressed, uncertain about her future, but still choosing to help someone else. That version of herself couldn't have imagined where that choice would lead. Tomorrow, she would start planning the national expansion. Next month, she would present to a congressional subcommittee on family policy. In 6 months, she would begin teaching graduate students about the intersection of business success and social responsibility. But tonight, she was simply grateful for the reminder that had shaped everything since. Someone is always watching, and the choices we make when we think no one cares are often the ones that matter most. The city lights blurred past her window, each one representing a person, a family, a story still being written. And somewhere in those lights, Claire knew, were the next acts of kindness that would ripple outward in ways yet to be discovered. The gesture that changed everything had become the beginning of everything else.